All right, and now I am joined by Angela, who is running for Education Officer this year. Angela, tell me a little bit about your campaign.
So hi, I'm Angela. I'm a fourth year Law with French Law student. I'm from Canada, and I've been really involved in academic representation and change making at UCL over my time at UCL. So I just knew this year I wanted to put myself for this position and just make a difference at the biggest possible level.
Right, thank you. So what do you think the main issues within the student union are right now, and what would you like to do to tackle them?
Yeah, so I think the biggest issue in the students' union, and this is specific to education, but also just in general, is I think there's a really big misunderstanding about how it works, how the education zone works, how policies get passed, and just a lack of engagement from students with democracy, with our union democracy. And I think that's a failing of the union because people need to be more aware. Even when I'm campaigning, a lot of people don't really know what a sabbatical officer is. So the first thing I want to do would be to improve the education zone and make sure that people are actually engaging. So sometimes it will be reps get elected, they're there for their CV, and then they never go again. So I would want to concretely make sure that if someone is repeatedly not showing up without an excuse, bye, it's time for a new rep, because that's your job, and it would make sure that people are actually engaging with our democracy. And I also want to make sure that as SABs, we're communicating more directly with the students, not just a weekly newsletter, but actually saying in a more concrete way, because I know that they give the SAB updates, but no one is going to the union website and looking at that. We need to be communicating directly with students. Here's what we're doing. What do you want to see us do? And here's how we're going to do it.
Okay, thank you. So how feasible do you think these changes would be to enact within student union?
I think that it would be pretty feasible because students have problems with their education and students have problems in general, and they want to voice that. They often just don't really know where. So I think that it would be 100% feasible by just increasing marketing and things like that. That's my biggest problem with the union. But when it comes to my actual policies and how feasible they are, I think they really are quite feasible. So my basic stuff would just be putting in a system for reporting late and vague feedback. That's my number one policy because it's an issue across departments, across faculties. I would embed it into Moodle because we already have a feedback tracker there, and I think it would be very easy to lobby UCL for that. Also things like adding more group study space. We already have tons of empty classrooms on campus, especially during exam time. So I think that it would be quite feasible to just do some research, maybe make some focus groups, see what people want, and implement that.
Right, thank you for joining me, Arabella. Welcome to Pi TV. Tell me a little bit about your campaign for Education Officer.
Of course, thank you for having me. So my campaign, as you may have seen, is the BRAT campaign all over campus. The reason I'm doing this is also because I want to really put the whole leadership race out there because we have pretty low engagement rate among students. So my biggest agenda is to get everyone to vote to participate in this race.
Great. So what do you think the main issues within the student union are right now, and how would you be working to resolve them?
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, I think very low engagement, particularly in the education zone, but also the whole of UCL. As a faculty, as an academic rep for the past 3 years, I've worked very closely with my department, but I've noticed this gap on a departmental level to a UCL-wide level. So I really want to bridge that gap between the departments and UCL. So one of my policies is to push for better departmental career service because currently we have a UCL-wide body for career. However, I think what's lacking is for a better career kind of service on a departmental level.
Okay. And how feasible do you think that the promises you're making are going to be within the student union?
Yeah, I think they're very feasible because I come from IRDR, which is a very small department, and we have a very good career service, and we have a dedicated person who posts placement opportunities for us. So I think UCL as an institution, we have very good reputation and kind of ability to facilitate that for our students. But we're not doing that currently. So apart from that, I also have other campaign promises listed on my poster. if you go check it out, and this is my Instagram post. So I think what I've suggested for my campaign promises, they're all very feasible, and I intend to implement them within my ability.
Great. All right, and now we are joined with Sarah, who is also running for Education Officer. Lovely to have you here, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit about your campaign ideas.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Sarah, I'm a third year English student, and I'm running for the role of Education Officer at UCL. So my campaign slogan is working for accessibility, accountability, and action. So I think I've got a couple of things that I want to work towards. One of my primary targets is working to continue the push for ethical partnerships and ethical and sustainable partnerships that the university has. I also want to work for some of the key issues that affect students with regards to the education on a day-to-day basis. So one of those would be study space availability. I know that everyone has those days where they're just traipsing around the student centre looking for a place to sit. I want to work to kind of make those sort of day-to-day interactions with their education easier. And also on a wider level with things like on a larger scale, I guess, with things like exams, with things like even applications to universities for further education. So I want to work on increasing scholarship availability and increasing availability of bursaries, but also working to make the ones that we already have in place more known by people, because I think people have said a lot that sometimes sometimes they have funding available to them, but they didn't know about it until it was too late. And so with things like that, I want to make sure it's more well-known and more streamlined.
Okay, thank you. So you've touched on it a little bit, but if you were to pinpoint one main issue within the student union right now that you really want to tackle, what would that be?
Okay, I think one main issue would be accountability with the students' union. I think that this encompasses a lot of the things that I'm saying, that the students have a lot of feedback and a lot of concerns that they are voicing, but sometimes these voices kind of go to the students' union and it kind of ends up in an abyss, and we don't really hear back about what went on, what happened with it. And so I'd really want to push for stronger accountability with the union, with UCL, so providing regular feedback on what's been going on and making sure that's accessible to students so they know and are informed.
Okay, great. And how feasible do you think your campaign points will be within the student union?
Okay, so I think I've got a range of campaign points, and some of them I think are definitely more feasible than others. There are things like I want to introduce the option to type for in-person exams. A lot of students are moving back to in-person exams with AI and with just the move back from COVID. And I think that having the option to type would make it a lot more accessible, and I think that's something that's fairly achievable. There are other things like continued push for ethical partnerships, which might be more difficult, but there have been recent successes with regards to those. And I think that it's just as important to continue putting pressure on issues that students care about, even if we don't see an impact straight away. I think the fact that I want to work on a range of issues should hopefully mean we'll see direct impact and long-term impact. And if you go to my Instagram account, Jilani for Education, I've gone into all my policies in more detail and broken down how I want to achieve them in the long term and the short term.
All right, and now I'm joined by Sasha. Sasha, thank you for joining us. And you're also running for Education Officer, so tell me a little bit about your campaign.
So my campaign is all about making education and university life one and the same. I feel like for a long time it's been very separated. My main manifesto points are to take the module that you want at undergraduate and now postgraduate. I find sometimes, I've not been super unlucky, but sometimes in one term there's a module where I'm like, this is really dragging my grade down. Not just that module, but if you're having trouble with one module, it really affects your others. And I feel like with the fees that we pay, you should be able to study what you came to UCL to study. Like often in the brochure, you might be really excited about a module, and to find out that only 15 people can take that, I think it's not enough. And on my course history, for example, US politics was a super popular module, and it has been run for a second term, and they've kind of hired a lecturer that has a specialty in US politics, so it can be done. We can expand module spaces. My second manifesto point is a scholarship finder. I was super duper lucky to find an amazing scholarship where I was able to go to the United Nations, and I thought that was such an amazing opportunity. And I wouldn't say it's because I'm particularly gifted or anything, it's just that I was lucky enough to kind of stumble across it, and I actually found it through this really random Instagram account, and that Instagram account obviously is not kind of affiliated with any universities. I really think that there needs to be a UCL scholarship finder. At the moment, the funding finder in UCL, almost every link you click is oh, this is expired. It's in 2022, and it's this is several years later now. So a finder that has all UCL scholarships, but also scholarships from around the world, because thousands of them are going unclaimed and all the talented students here could be making use of them. Also, I'd like to do 40% off local restaurants. This is kind of a rogue one maybe, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm president of Food Society, and I'm actually in conversations with quite a few restaurants at the moment to create discounts, and it is something that previous presidents of Food Stock have done an amazing job of, so it is possible. I just think like the food on campus, yes, it needs to be cheaper, it needs to be tastier, but realistically, I'm not sure how much is possible for that to happen. So kind of outsourcing it to local restaurants where it's actually their job. The whole job is to be a restaurant, not to kind of make profit for the university, which is kind of what the cafes on campus do, would be a lot easier, a lot tastier basically. And it's just so nice to have a tasty meal to look forward to between lectures that does cost loads of money. Another one is study retreats. I really want to implement something where you can just take the train for half an hour and be in like a nice green place outside of the chaos of central London just to reset. I think is especially useful for humanities degrees to take humanities subjects myself. And I just think sometimes you need the space to write and think for several hours without distractions in a new place. And the last one is nap recliners, which is going to be a solution to the broken promise of sleep pods, because recliner chairs are pretty relatively cheap, and it's just something where you can go and have a little like power nap on campus in a place where it feels like kind of semi-private, and it's actually feasible, and it will happen if I was elected.
Okay, great. And if you were to pinpoint one main issue that you've noticed in the Students' Union this year, what would it be, and how would you resolve that?
I would say one main issue from the perspective of like education officer is that there's so many exciting activities happening for like societies and like campus life, but apart from like exam well-being, none of these are centered around education. Like of course we have the alpacas and stuff and the therapy dogs, and that's really lovely. I love that and want to continue that, but I think there can be a lot more like creative ways to make the SU like get involved in education. It doesn't just have to be like UCL, the institution of UCL is exams and boring assessments, and it's so painful, and then SU is the escape from that. There can be like fun and education can go hand in hand.